In this video, I'm going to show you how to connect up and use the different inputs that came in your Crumble bit bag. First of all, we're going to look at the switch, and I'm going to connect it to this Crumble that I've got set up, which was controlling the robotic shaker from the last video. So here's the switch, and it's operated just by pushing the button in the center. And we need to connect this to any of the available inputs that we've got left on the Crumble. So I'm going to connect it to input D. Now the other side of the switch needs to be connected to the positive power, and we've got a number of different options. We could take it from here and here at the top of the board, or from the battery box there where we've got a spare positive connection, and that's where I'm going to connect this to. So we're going to connect it up to the battery box. Let's now have a look at the code for how we can use this switch. So in the inputs outputs menu, you'll see a block of code which says A is high, and you'll see that when you click on the high, it changes to LO, which represents low. Now whether a pin is high or low depends on whether we've got any current flowing into it. So let me show you how we can use this in a program. I'm just going to drag in a simple if-then block, and I'm going to place that blue block of code in there, and we connected our switch to pin D, so I've just changed the letter. Now what's going to happen now is anything that's inside this box, which I'm putting in now, is going to happen if pin D is high. So if we click on the switch and it closes it and there's a current that flows through it, the condition D equals high will be met, and the code inside this if-then block will run. So I'm just finishing this off so you can see it's just going to shake the shaker backwards and forwards with 200 millisecond gap between each of the shakes. Now I want this to repeat over and over until I release the switch, so D goes back to being low, so I'm just going to change that there, and when that's the case it will stop. Now the final bit of code I need to add is to place a forever loop around everything that I've just written, which is here. Just drop it into there, and we can go back to the shaker and see how this code works. So we can see now the instrument only shakes when I push the button. There are lots of other ways you could use your switch within your code. For example, we might use the switch to get our instrument to change rhythm. To do that, we could use an if-then-else command, and we could say that when the switch is high, it would play one rhythm. I'll just add those into that top section, and then we could build a different rhythm into the bottom section. So start tinkering with the switch from your bit bag and see what you can get it to control. Now we're going to look at using the ultrasonic sensor. Let's look at how we connect it up first. So here's the ultrasonic sensor. It will allow us to measure the distance to objects placed in front of it. And you'll see it's got 4 connections that we need to connect. The first I'm going to connect are the power connections. So I'm going to take a lead from the negative here to the negative pin on the battery box, and I'm going to take a lead from the positive pin on the ultrasonic sensor to the spare positive pin on the battery box, just like so. So then it has the power it needs to work. Next we're going to connect up the pins marked E and T, which stand for echo and trigger, and you can connect these to any of the 3 inputs on the Crumble. You just need to remember which ones you've connected them to. So I'm going to connect echo to pin B, and I'm going to connect the trigger to pin C. And it will be the information coming from the echo and trigger which allows the code to work out the distance to objects placed in front of the sensor. Okay, so let's look at how we can use this sensor in our code. First of all, we can write a simple bit of code so that we can see the value of the distance that the sensor is measuring. We can do that by taking this command from the variables menu and placing it into a do forever loop, and selecting any of the variables. I've chosen T here to sit inside that. And what we're going to do is from the input output you'll see a block called distance, and this takes the measurement from that sensor, and by setting T equal to it we'll be able to monitor that. Now you need to make sure here where it says T and E that you've got it set to the same connections you used on the Crumble. So if I remember rightly, my T went into input C. Okay, so if we now run this program and go back to the variables menu, you'll see that value next to T variable varying, and that's because what you can't see here is I'm putting my hand in front of that sensor and taking it away again so I can get it to go right down. If I remove it, it goes right back up again. Okay, so let's now look at how we can use that to control our shaker. Okay, what I've done here is I've added in beneath this section of code here. It's a simple if-then selection block, and I've used an operator from the operators menu to say that if the value of T, that distance, is greater than 50, it's going to run this top section of code, and if it's less than 50, it's going to run the bottom. And as a really simple example here, what you can see is the difference is that in this top section the wait time is 200 milliseconds, so it's a quick shake, and the bottom is a second, so it's a slower shake. So I'm going to load that in to here, okay, and I'm going to run the program, and let's go and see how we can interact with our instrument using that ultrasonic sensor. Okay, so now you can see that I can change the speed the shaker shakes at just by changing the distance of the object in front of the sensor, in this case my hand. Okay, finally let's look at how we can use the LDR, the light dependent resistor. Okay, so here's the LDR sensor, and what we need to do is connect this between the positive power and any one of the inputs that we've got available on the Crumble here. So I'm going to connect it to power from the battery box. Remember, you could take the power off the top of the Crumble board if you wanted to, just like the ultrasonic sensor. So I'm going to connect it there. And then on the other side, I'm going to use pin D, which I've got available here. So I'm going to connect that there. And there we go, it's connected. Okay, so here's some code I've written to use the LDR input. Let me talk you through what I've done. To start, so I can see the value that the input's giving, I've used a variable, just like I did for the ultrasonic. I've used T, and I've set T equal to analog D. Now you get that analog block of code from the input-output menu. Let me just show you, it's there, okay? And I've set it to D because that is the pin that I connected the LDR to. Now if I run this program and go back to the variables menu, there we go, you should be able to see the value decrease as I lower the blinds in the room I'm working in and make it darker. Yes, there we go. Okay, let's open them up again so I can see again there. So you can see the value from the light dependent resistor is changing. So all I've done then, just like the ultrasonic sensor, is I've used one of these if-then blocks and an operator to trigger the shaker to move when T is greater than 225. Okay, let's see if this works. Right, now when I open the blinds, my shaker plays, and when I darken the room again, it stops playing. Open the blinds, let the light in, and it plays again.